Although it only lasted 3 years, the Clone Wars was one of the most traumatic times in galactic history. There was no rest for any of the factions, as there was always something occurring. Within the small time frame of the war, so many evil machinations and experiments by Dooku would rise and fall. But one of the most mysterious creations of Tyrannus was his duo of the personal doppelgangers. This is one of the more secretive experiments that went on during the Clone Wars, and Dooku's attempt to somewhat clone himself using the dark side and secret experiments. Clones that could use the Force and mimic his own fighting style. Both of these body doubles would be defeated by Anakin Skywalker very early in the war, and you might notice that we said something like clones, as we're not just referring to them as clones outright. That's because there's a lot more to these doppelgangers than meets the eye, and our sources suggest that they weren't clones at all, but something far stranger. So today, let's open a holocron and dive into the mystery of the double Dookus. Our source today comes from Legends Star Wars The New Droid Army, which takes place very shortly after the Battle of Geonosis. A Padawan Skywalker is called by the Jedi Council to investigate the disappearance of one of their Republic informants, one who alerted them to a dangerous new type of battle droid being developed by the Separatist movement. In partnership with the Techno Union, the Separatists had been developing prototypes of a CB-3 Cortosis battle droid, and as the name suggested, the droid was essentially the make of a B-2 super battle droid, but with the shell of Cortosis instead of regular alloy. For those who do not know, Cortosis is a lightsaber-resistant metal. Any lightsaber blades that make contact with Cortosis will not only be repelled, but short out for a short period of time. Obviously, this makes them a complete anti-Jedi droid, as they wouldn't be able to defend themselves against such battle droids at all. Anakin finds all of this out during his investigation, as Skywalker is led towards the planet of Metolern, where the Techno Union factory is developing these anti-Jedi droids. Yoda and Mace Windu urge Skywalker to immediately infiltrate the factory and destroy it from within, not wanting to let these CB-3 droids ever hit the battlefield. During his journey, Dooku throws several of his dark acolytes at Anakin, but Anakin destroys them all. In the end, there was only one person left to stand between Skywalker and the destruction of the droid factory. This is where the first doppelganger of Dooku comes in. Anakin believes the entire time that it was the true Dooku that he was fighting, but in fact, it was simply a body double. This doppelganger was more or less used as a bodyguard for Wat Tambor, and was ordered to protect the CB-3 factory. It proved to be a worthy opponent for Skywalker though, as it could mimic Dooku's Makashi style, and could even use Sith lightning. However, it was clearly not the real Dooku, and the doppelganger was, in actuality, only about half the strength of the original. Still impressive though. But what Anakin noted is that the doppelganger had no deeper understanding of the dark side, and was defenseless against Anakin's rage-filled power strikes for Dooku taking his arm. It would be destroyed by Anakin, and would vanish upon its death. Sometime later, Skywalker would discover another one of these doppelgangers on Dooku's homeworld of Sereno, and destroyed that one as well. In functionality, it didn't seem as though the doppelgangers were really meant for full-on battle with the Jedi, as a Padawan Anakin took out both of them with relative ease. It seems that they were supposed to more function like puppet figureheads, or placeholders for the real Dooku. Tyrannus had Sith business to attend to, interplanetary diplomacy, and the entire Separatist army to command. With all of that, he was always training new darkside acolytes, searching for artifacts, and creating more plans against the Jedi war effort. He can't always be around to govern the people of Sereno, or to oversee the production of a mysterious battle droid, so needing to be in multiple places at once, the natural course of action was to get a few bodies cloned. As we've seen in the galaxy, decoys were a commonality among royalty and the elite, and this was to protect them against assassination. But with Dooku, his decoys would need to not only be force sensitive, but competent enough with a lightsaber to mimic his own strength. So what exactly were these mysterious doppelganger clones? Why were they so successful, since cloning a force sensitive is notoriously difficult? The actual truth about this though, is that no one really ever found out. All we have are mere suggestions. The big thing that's tripping everyone up is that they weren't exactly clones. Both the developers of this game and the Star Wars fact files indicate that it's uncertain and highly improbable that a cloning process was used to create the doppelgangers. Not only is it out of Dooku's own character to allow himself to be cloned, but the doppelgangers don't exhibit clone traits. They don't seem to really have a mind of their own, despite operating independently from Dooku. Shockingly, the clones aren't even aware that they are doubles, or even have any sentience to speak of. Each of them talk and act as if they are the real Darth Tyrannus, all of his arrogance and grandiosity. We searched the pages of legends and both canon lore, and we have come to the conclusion exactly what these doppelgangers are. We believe that these were Force-sensitive changelings, but the problem again lies in the fact that they are able to mimic Dooku's personality, even down to the last detail, even at the moment of their death. And then there's the fact that the doppelgangers tend to vanish when they died. Despite the fact that File offers as a suggestion, it's impossible for them to be Force illusions, because we know that this requires an active, conscious effort to project them, and Dooku would have to be in the same place to project his consciousness. Even if Dooku were powerful enough to do this, he would have to be in strenuous meditation. Even with all of that aside, assuming perhaps the illusions are being projected by someone or something else, they're solid and have the ability to fight and wield the Force effectively. The doppelgangers can take lightsaber wounds and inflict them as well, so it's literally impossible for them to be illusions. The more you think about it, the creepier it gets, as each and every possibility starts getting ticked off the list. The only thing that we can think of is the last option that's offered: a dark side creation using alchemy. Here at the channel, we know that in the natural world of science, the Dooku doppelgangers just don't make any sense in the lore, but the dark side of the Force contains many possibilities that are unnatural. Only a ritual by Darth Sidious using the help of the Count, and probably a bunch of Sith alchemy, would produce creatures so strange as these doppelgangers. They have no sentience because they are literally meant to embody Dooku. They are subservient to him and have no ability to actually fight against him. They are only half of who he truly is. Each of them are puppets of Dooku's will, even extensions of his consciousness. Sidious was known to have researched the pages of Darth Plagueis' notes and had many dark side scientists on standby, creating hideous mutants using alchemy. We believe that these doppelgangers were another horrendous thing to come out of Palpatine's laboratories thanks to Plagueis. Whether from a cauldron or a test tube, it's now undoubtedly clear that Sith magic was involved in the creation of these Dooku doubles. This would explain their ability to use the Force and why they disappeared when they die. But of course, the price of that is that they are fragile. One can't simply make an army of these things because they're too weak to last long term. From what we can tell, this project didn't seem like something Dooku was even trying to keep around long term, but was just a temporary convenience to start the war off. But anyway, my friends, this is some deep lore that we covered today, and I hope you enjoyed it. But just because we couldn't find anything concrete in the lore doesn't mean that you can't. So what do you believe these Dooku doppelgangers were? The doppelgangers were described as a strange addition to a Game Boy Advance Star Wars game, which was meant to give the player a feeling of accomplishment for defeating Dooku. But the creators of the game explained that they couldn't have any continuity errors of Dooku being killed prior to Revenge of the Sith, especially by an Anakin who was just a Padawan. This is why they made the bosses half the power of Dooku. But what's interesting is that the game developer, Abel G. Penna, decided to have the doppelgangers be explained as products of the Force rather than clones, as he believed the clones were becoming an overused trope for inconsistent deaths. He also would go on to explain that the reason he had them disappear was to give more evidence that they were conjurings of the Force itself. The behind-the-scenes reasoning for the doppelgangers is actually pretty funny, but when you look at them from an in-lore perspective, and the fact that they are Sith creations makes them quite horrifying to think about. But as always, Acolytes, we will hope to see you in the next holocron, and as always, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.